Be mindful of your time. The time is 5:30 p.m. I would like to call our work session to order. Mr. Truesdale, could you please call the roll? Sorry.
Ms. Davis,
Present.
Ms. Green, Mr. Jones,
Here.
Mr. Lawson,
Here.
Ms. Rawls,
Present.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Present.
Ms. Hill.
Present. Thank you. We will begin with the work of the Administration Committee. This evening, the Administration Committee has one bill and one resolution. We will begin with Bill 5 of 2026. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Bill 5, 2026, an ordinance for giving and discharging 2024 and 2025 city real estate taxes, including interest, penalties, and costs, and striking off tax liens for certain historically tax-exempt properties.
Thank you. Solicitor Grover.
This is, I think, the fourth one of these that have come along with the exemption. Immediately after we just did the other one, we received another notice from the county. This is for what is now, we understand, the Church of the Pentecost. It was for years the Redeemer Church up on Cameron Street, the Redeemer Community Church. That is our understanding until 2017. They had put in their application for exemption, but had not reached out to us until we got the notice from the tax assessment office from the county. So this is the same thing. They were having not timely responded to the original exemption mailing. They got assessed taxes for 24 and 25. The property had been exempt for years as a church, and it continued to operate as a religious operation. So it is the same as we have done before to exempt the taxes for years 24 and 25. And I believe I mentioned the last time, these will now trigger, if it's a 3-year delinquency, a tax sale. So if there's any other stragglers that haven't responded, the notice on their property will probably trigger them going to the county to get done their paperwork and then end up at all the taxing authorities.
Okay, is there any further discussion on your end? Okay. I will open the floor to my colleagues. I don't have any questions. I think we've gotten used to these, but they may have some additional questions. I'd like to begin with Councilwoman Davis. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, President Hill. No questions for me.
Thank you. Councilman Rodriguez, any questions?
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for that breakdown, Neil. No questions for me.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rawls, any questions?
Thank you. Good evening. I just have one. I think I'm just a little, maybe, I do understand the exemptions, but I'm just a little ignorant in this department sometimes. Even for maybe the people online, like what facilities always like maybe probably get exempt from taxes? Because I know that's raised a couple questions. There's so many properties that get exempt and from property taxes that could go to the city and the schools. So
there are a series of constitutionally authorized exemptions from real estate tax. Government-owned property that's put to a public use is all exempt. And sometimes you get to the nitty-gritty, is it all being used for government or not? There's been some arguments about that. Hospitals, for the most part, are exempt, but because they're so complex, they'll have other corporations within them that are renting from them that may, in fact, for part of the square space, the equivalent of a condominium, they might pay real estate tax on that piece. Churches and religious-owned facilities that are put to a religious use are exempt. But very often, what you'll see the exception is the pastor's house, if they live in it, if they provide him a house, that's for personal use of the pastor. So that is not exempt, that portion of the land. Those are the general categories. Things like senior centers that are publicly funded, those are exempt, and other similar things.
thank you for that. I appreciate it. Taught me something a little bit more, and I'm sure some other people. So thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Jones, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Green, any questions?
Thank you very much. I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Councilman Lawson, any questions?
Thank you, President Hill. No questions.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further discussion, I move to add Bill 5 of 2025 to our next legislative session agenda for a formal vote. Next, we have Resolution 22 of 2026. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 22, 2026, a resolution authorizing the City of Harrisburg to negotiate and enter into a professional services agreement with McCormick Law Firm to serve as special counsel for the purpose of reviewing and revising the city's business privilege and mercantile tax ordinance and related regulations.
Thank you. Who from the administration is present to discuss Resolution 22?
Mr. Hughes, our tax administrator, and the attorney is here from the outside firm.
Excellent.
Good evening, City Council. Mike Hughes,
evening.
Tax Administrator.
Thank you.
Madam President, members of council, Nick Grimes from McCormick Law Firm.
Great, thank you. If you wouldn't mind taking a few minutes to just provide an overview of Resolution 22 of 2026.
So I'm excited to talk about no one's favorite topic except for mine, business privilege taxes. Mr. Hughes had reached out to me, and we've known each other for a while through professional organizations in the state. And it sounds like it's time for Harrisburg to review the rules and regulations specifically around the business privilege tax. I believe the last time your rules and regs were updated was 2001. And the rules and regs do a great job at providing guidance to taxpayers to make sure that they understand the tax that they're paying, to make sure the tax is enforced uniformly. And there's changes in the legislature, there's changes in the case law that require some updates to those rules and regulations to be sure that the taxpayers can understand and can comply with the tax. So what I've submitted is a proposal for our firm to go through the tax ordinance in the city of Harrisburg, go through the rules and regulations, and then provide suggestions for updates on those. We will draft the whole new rules and regulations, but obviously that's something that would come back to this body to review, to ask questions about, and if there's any changes, then to adopt those changes.
Thank you. What is the timeline for your services?
It depends on how much needs to be done and if there's any hiccups, for lack of a better term. But it sounds like in talking with Solicitor Grover and the tax department that they would like to have new rules and regs adopted by January 1 of next year to be effective for next tax year. And that is doable if we don't run into any issues.
Okay. Mr. Hughes, did you want to add anything before I open up the floor for questions?
I think that's fine for right now. Yep.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'll open the floor to my colleagues who may have some additional questions for you. I'd like to begin with Vice President Jones.
Thank you. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well,
Mr.
thank
Hughes?
you.
Yeah, one of the things I'm glad that we're here at this moment for this. You know, I have spoken to Mr. Hughes a few times in regards to seeing how we can actually reduce some of the red tape for some of our businesses that are coming in and doing business with the city. As you noted, and I think we would agree, some of those laws, so to speak, are archaic for today's time and what we're looking to do with our city. So I'm really hoping that we can really dig into those areas where there's a lot of businesses, small businesses here in the city that has a lot of issues with a lot of things that they're doing in taxation. Everybody hates taxation, right? But it's needed, it's necessary. I get it. But I think if we can, if I'm able to actually sit with you guys and talk about some of these things, bringing those exact issues or where we're looking at. And you said give you about a year or at least the rest of this year to go through some of these. Is that the timeline you?
If there would be changes to your actual tax ordinance, I assume that takes 3 readings. 3 readings, so those changes would need to be before you at least 3 readings before the end of the year if they were to be effective in next tax year.
In practical terms, it has to be done before the budget is prepared and finalized, because projections on the tax ordinance, if it makes changes, would have to be considered there for a January effective date. We're not saying the tax rate will change, but we're having a review done.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, again, for me, that's one of the biggest things that, you know, I'm interested in for our residents and some of the businesses here. I'm sure Mr. Hughes gets a lot of complaints around this issue as well. But I think it's necessary today, especially, again, as we're looking to move the city of Harrisburg forward and revitalize the area itself, not just the downtown area, you know, but we definitely want to make it attractive for businesses and people to do business inside of the city without so much taxation. And again, I hope that we can just look at, is there any specific areas that you're looking at now, Mr. Hughes, that, you know, that are pertinent?
I'm sorry, what was the last part?
That are pertinent to today's, yeah.
So as far as updating the rules and regulations, like Nick had stated, I mean, it was 2001 was the last time they were done. So a lot of the examples are based on old business models. I'm talking about steel and different types of manufacturing. So we'd like to bring it into the 20th century with our examples to better help guide taxpayers, you know, with the new business models on how they should pay their tax and what applies to them, different categories and so forth. So pretty much just bringing the whole document current and adding any updates that are required by the state legislator that we have to put in there also. So
now, when you say that's required, of course I know what that means. However, I think that's the reason why we're doing this now, because some of that's outdated, and we just want to make sure that we're in today's modern time with those laws and taxes. So again, for me, that's one of my biggest things that I will want to be willing to sit down with Mr. Hughes and even yourself, if need be, to look at certain areas. And I have been talking to, you know, certain businesses around here, and probably have an outline of questions that I can send over first and foremost for you to take a look at, and then we can just move on from there.
sounds good.
All right, no further questions.
Thank you. Councilwoman Green, any questions?
Thank you, President Hill, and thank you both for being here tonight. One question I have, I saw the fee proposal was $250 an hour for lawyers and $150 an hour for paralegals, correct? Is there an expected number of hours? Is there a cap on the cost?
We did put an estimate in the proposal that
It was pretty wide range.
it is a very wide range, and it's very hard to tell until we really dig into your regulations and dig into your ordinance, and then hear on how many changes you guys need. The initial review that we do is simply for the legality, the changes in the law, and the guidance that the taxpayers need. That's things like what establishes nexus, a very important case out of Harrisburg. Rendina changed some of the laws on what creates nexus for businesses, for business privilege tax. There's been updates in things like what qualifies as a purely public charity, which is the test in Pennsylvania for tax exemption from local taxes for nonprofits. So offering guidance to taxpayers on those things. In a modern world, there's a lot more global and nationwide businesses, so offering guidance to be sure that it's clear in the rules and regs on what happens when you have interstate commerce sales and how that's treated. If none of those things are in the current rules and regs, we're looking at a completely new document. If most of them are addressed and just need updated, it takes a little less work. And then the ordinance takes a little more time because you have to be very careful when you change an ordinance. It's a Tax Reform Act of 1988, I believe it is, which says if you have a gross receipts tax in Pennsylvania, you can keep your gross receipts tax. But you can't adopt a new tax, and you can't expand the tax in rate or in subjects of the tax. So you have to be very careful that you don't change your ordinance in a way that violates that law, because then there's a chance that your tax can be thrown out altogether then, which obviously is an important piece of revenue. So there's times when we can go through this and be at $10,000 or a little less. There's times where there's a lot of question, a lot of need for me to address council, a lot of need to have executive sessions on certain issues or problems that you have that cost it to be closer to $20,000. So it's hard to give a concrete answer to that question until we really get into it.
Okay. A timeline for review, about how long do you expect it to take to review over this to start with before we even get into revision?
The review itself is relatively quick. I mean, your ordinances aren't that long, and the rules and regs aren't that long. It's really after we do that initial review, which would probably be done within the next few weeks, that then we'd have to sit down with the administration and Mr. Hughes and decide how we want to address all of these concerns. Make sure that we know that if you're treating your interstate commerce as the three-factor apportionment, that the state changed their rules for it, and be sure that you want to keep the three-factor apportionment for apportioning interstate commerce, those kind of concerns. Some of the other things are easy because the rules and regs regarding purely public charities are pretty standard among every jurisdiction, since that's done by state law. But we can have an initial review done within a month, but then the work starts on deciding how we want to handle that and how we want to adopt that into a new set of rules and regulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then last question for Mr. Hughes, how do we go about choosing this firm?
I had submitted a couple different, I think it was 3 different firms to Neil for review, and ultimately it was, Neil's choice, so.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't have any other questions for you at the moment. Thank you for being here tonight. I think this is something we need to definitely get into and get our regulations up to date. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Lawson, any questions?
Yes, thank you, President Hill. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming out and bringing this up. It is important, as Vice President Jones had mentioned when talking to business owners, one of the main topics they bring, that they would love to invest, but they just don't know all the ins and outs. They don't know the rules, and it becomes a little bit confusing for them. And maybe this is a question for Mr. Hughes, I'm not certain, but as we're looking at this, would this be also a great opportunity to look at how we could streamline the process with our mercantile tax and also our zoning, permitting, and just kind of make like a one-stop shop so that it's easy for businesses to come and just set up their tent?
It's a good question, of course. And we've been, all the years I've been here, we've constantly been tweaking, arranging, trying to come up with a better product, a better option for taxpayers. Years ago, we did switch to a one-stop shop, which is they come to our office with all the applications. So we have one point of contact, and we're not sending them around individually to, well, then go to zoning, then go to codes, then go to fire, then go to health. So they just have to come to our office, submit the application packet. So we have 2 processes, one for city-based businesses, one for out-of-city-based businesses. So if it's a city-based business, that we intake that application, we scan it, and we have an internal Laserfiche system. So then that document is sent first to zoning electronically, and it also notifies the applicant of the different stages of the application. So when it first gets sent to zoning, the applicant is notified, your application is with zoning for review. And then Mr. Knight, reviews that application. When he finishes his review, then he sends it on to the next step, the codes department. Mm-hmm. And then at that point, the applicant's notified again via email, hey, you're now with the codes, and so forth. And then it either goes to fire or the fire chief, depending on what type of business. And if there's food involved, then it would go to the health officer. Once all of them review, sign off electronically on the document, it comes back to our office electronically. I do a final review and hit it in the system, and it approves it. The person's notified, and we issue the license, within 2 days of it processing in Treasury.
All right.
So it definitely has been streamlined over the last couple of years. Are there still delays that I would like not to be there? Yes. unfortunately, a lot of it just has to do with people's schedules, you know, depending on how long it takes to get the zoning review. I mean, the health officer, we have one health officer, a lot of establishments, so sometimes it takes a while to get that scheduled. You know, a lot of the other steps, we move quickly. I mean, we move it right away that same day. I move it within the day when it comes to my in-bin. But you have to realize along the way, other people's schedules, kind of, they can't move it so quickly. I don't know what the answer is there, but like I said, we're always exploring, always trying to improve and tweak the process, and we are open for suggestions if you have any, so.
All right. Well, if I could tag along to Vice President Jones's meeting when you have that, I'll survey and maybe we'll have some other questions, you know, at that point. And then the only other question I have is just, you mentioned that it was 2001?
It was written in 2001, but I think the actual passage, and just for reference, this document is available on the city website for everyone can review what the current document is. If you go to the tax enforcement website, other documents, you can find the rules and regulations out there and take a look at them now. So, but it was actually, right, effective January 1 of 2002.
Okay.
So the work was put in during the year of 2001. It was effective January 1 of 2002, so.
And then my question would be, if we, you know, put together this update, could we write in like an automatic review, automatic update, so that we don't go to a period where we're waiting 25 years?
We would probably advise against that,
Okay.
because just in a transition, if it gets dropped, there'd be a question of whether the taxes are now legally in place. If you mandate by ordinance a review period, and just, you know, administration's changed, so someone leaves who's in charge, and they don't know that provision 7 years from now, and then no one reviewed it, the question is, does the entire tax get challenged by a taxpayer 2 years later? So those kind of things are, you know, it's easy to put in the regulations. That's the power of, let's say, the tax enforcement administrator to cause a review, as opposed to it will be on this time frame, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yes.
All right, thank you. That's everything that I had.
Thank you. Hold on one second. Councilwoman Rawls, any questions?
Thank you, President Hill. Most of my questions have been asked and answered. I just had one follow-up question to Councilwoman Greens. Mr. Hughes, cannot speak right now. I know you said you did not pick the law firm, and Solicitor Grover did. I was wondering, why did you choose McCormick? I'm tongue-tied today, so.
So it really was just about, first, I will tell you, an attorney in Pennsylvania has an ethical obligation when there's a specialty they're not in, is to affiliate with a firm or a lawyer who has that specialty. And that was part of what triggers this. There was another firm we interviewed, and it was purely a economic thing. We were discussing transportation costs. My firm, our office generally doesn't pay you to drive here from a far distance and drive back. We look at it as not a good use of taxpayers' money. When I arrived, we used to pay lawyers from Pittsburgh to drive in to meet, and to drive back. So we were paying like an extra 8 hours a day just for driving. So we had instituted that provision 10 years ago or more. So that was a discussion we just never got past with the prior person. And you know, this firm was the next on the list in terms of qualifications.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
That's it for me.
Thank you. Councilman Rodriguez, any questions?
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this evening. I just wanted, is the McCormick website mclaw.com?
Correct.
Awesome. And you guys were recently recognized. They have 2026 edition of Best Law Firms.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. What would you say is your expertise when it comes to city ordinance and mercantile tax?
For me specifically, business privilege and mercantile tax has been a specialty for me. Our firm as a whole, and within my practice area as well, is municipal law. The majority of my clients and the work that I do is with school districts, cities, townships, boroughs, authorities. That's where I do most of my work. So not only do we understand how third-class cities operate, but we understand how ordinances and resolutions and regulations work. And then for me specifically, with that knowledge, I have a background in the business privilege tax, working in the shoes of Mr. Hughes for the city of Williamsport, Keystone Central School District, and a few other entities that have collected the tax prior to going to law school and becoming an attorney.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Over 240 years of experience in the firm, 52 municipalities served, and 164 years in operation. Definitely seem qualified. And my next question is for Solicitor Grover. You briefly touched on it, Solicitor, but for the residents' edification that's watching, although we do have our own solicitor, why was it important that this was through way of third party?
In not just local law,
Yep.
but in this country, tax law is considered a specialty. You can get your own separate legal degree just in tax. And again, our obligation as professional, if it's a specialty that we are not functioning in, it would be irresponsible, probably unethical, to put out that we understand it and can rewrite that provision without affiliating with someone who does it full time.
Awesome. Thank you for that. No further questions, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilwoman Davis, any questions?
Thank you, President Hill. Good evening, Mr. Hughes and Mr. Rocks.
Good evening.
Thank you for being here this evening. I actually have been in conversations with the administration, so I'm very pleased to see that this area of taxation is going to be reviewed. Specifically, the business and mercantile tax. I think that the penalty currently is extremely high for businesses. But again, I'm not the professional, so I just want to say kudos to the administration. Thank you for being willing to review the entire tax laws here for the city. Our businesses deserve that, and it's well overdue. So otherwise, my questions have been answered by my other colleagues, so thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Jones?
Yes, I want to revisit you guys again. How you doing, man? I have two questions. One is around, again, the taxation and the collection of it. In your experience, have you seen in other municipalities where, when it comes to businesses, period, inside of a city or doing business inside of the city, have you ever seen those taxations tiered?
For business privilege and mercantile tax, you can tier it based on service or physical sales, and that's usually the difference, and it's not always the case, but usually the difference between your mercantile tax ordinance, that's when you sell a physical product, and your business privilege tax ordinance is generally for rental and services. You can tier it based on those classifications, but in Pennsylvania, we have the uniformity clause in the Constitution, which requires, I'm getting tongue-tied too, requires you to be uniform in your taxation unless they are separate and distinct subjects. And that's why we don't have like a tiered earned income tax. That's why for real estate taxes, you can't charge a business different than you would charge a residential property in your tax rate. So you can tier in specific categories that have been said that are allowed to be tiered within certain caps, but you can't arbitrarily treat different businesses within those categories differently.
Right, and I hate to bring up this word again, but it's just something that, again, I've been dealing with residents and small business owners. Again, this was a topic for a minute. Our amusement tax, and people think it's rather high, and I get where the city is charging 5, and then we're collecting for the school district, which makes it a even 10, which I still think is a pretty decent number when it comes to that. So in that area, some businesses may look to tier in that area. Have you seen that when it comes to amusement?
Amusement tax, most of the municipalities that we work with have either a flat rate amusement tax. I don't work with one myself who does a percentage amusement tax. I'm certainly familiar with that. I don't recall any tiered rates within the percentage. There's a range of percentages with the cap. I believe the Local Tax Enabling Act caps that at 5%. And it is not unusual at all in the amusement tax or other taxes for municipalities to be at the cap established by the Local Tax Enabling Act.
Okay. And the second thing was just to go back to what Councilman Lawson was talking about. When there's one incident that I seen was working with a resident trying to get them, when he's talking about streamlining the services. So I don't even know how to frame it, but I would just say it, that some of the businesses, what I witnessed one time is where it may go through zoning, then it go through codes and all of the process, right? And zoning may say, hey, this is great, or the fire department might come in and say, hey, you're good. But then when it gets to zoning, and they're like, hey, you can't, none of this. So I'm looking to see, and I discussed this before when that issue arrived. Is there a way that, I know that code shouldn't be doing zoning's job, but is there a way that, everyone can work together, again, to his point, where they're not just running into a brick wall or a roadblock because, well, zoning said it was fine, but now I get here and you guys telling me, you understand what I'm saying? Is there a way that we can do that?
That's just a much bigger discussion. It really is. I mean, there is a web of laws that people have to comply with to have property in the city and open a business. And it's usually reverse. It's usually that codes doesn't see an issue necessarily, but zoning, because the code is mandatory and you have to prove you're entitled to an exemption or a variance
Right.
for it. It's just either the zoning code changes, which is a very involved process. It's doable, or because the planning, what we adopt for the codes office is generally statewide codes, right, that we put in. But then we localize a zoning code, which is one of the few true local powers that all the courts recognize, that we collectively know what's best for our community, where things should be and shouldn't be. And so it's a process. The last time we did a full zoning code change was 2014. As far as I can tell, there were probably 8 or 10 versions of that never got adopted over the years. It just kept getting processed, and then it never went for a vote for whatever reasons. We weren't here then at the time. So changing the zoning is a big deal, and it should be, because property owners' rights are a big deal. But the real place to start is this property zoned for what you propose?
Right.
Right, and that you start from that question.
I did ask that question on what we can do on our end, but sometimes it's just that a new developer or a new business owner come in, they may not just be aware. Is there a way that we can, as far as educating those individuals that are seeking to or create a business or put a business in certain areas, at least informing them, educating them with a one-pager or something, because again, it was very frustrating for that individual. They didn't know they weren't all together, even though we're all together.
So I think we all know how things sometimes work out there. What happens is some property owner will move ahead, open a business, not pull any licenses, renovate a building, not pull any permits.
That's different.
No, that happens a lot. And then they come in, and you as the buyer, I'm buying a 4-unit building. It's a 4-unit building. I'm buying a local store. It's a local store. You come in, put your money down in good faith, and you come in and find out to get your license that it's not zoned or allowed.
And that was the instance. They thought they could have a daycare on the 4th floor, and there was no way that you can have a daycare on the 4th floor. But it was previously a daycare, and so that was an instance where we found out
quite a bit. And so a lot of times in planning, we're there doing the corrective. The new owner's trying to comply with the rules, and then they're trying to get their variance because that's what they paid for when they bought the business and the property. And so it happens more than I think people would think it happens. And so we chase a lot of things in the city. Mike's office does, Jeff's office does, codes does, just trying to bring people into compliance, not trying to punish them, just trying to bring it into compliance so you're doing what everyone else is doing who did pay to get their permits and things.
All right, that's it. Thank you. Thank you, President Hill.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions, comments? Councilwoman Davis.
Thank you, President Hill. Yes, since we're talking about business privilege and mercantile tax, have you ever handled a case or worked with a municipality and the penalty actually was reduced because of the research that you've done?
According to the law, there's two circumstances where you can waive, you don't have discretion to waive penalty and interest. If there was delay, undue delay by the tax officer, then they're required by law to waive penalty and interest for that undue delay. I believe Busy Beaver was the case. It was a plumber who had back years in taxes. They had a jeopardy assessment done, and I believe, I'm trying to recall the circumstances of this case. If I misstate something, I apologize, but that assessment sat on the tax officer's desk for a year or 2 years, and then they tried to get the penalty for that year or 2 years from when it sat on that person's desk, and it just needed to be mailed out, and the court said, no, you can't do that. You can't charge them penalty and interest there. And the other place is if there's written advice from the tax officer treating your business a certain way. For example, if you say, I'm not sure if I'm a purely public charity, should I be exempt? If you submit a request to the tax officer responds in writing and says, yes, you are exempt. If a new tax officer comes in and says, no, you're not exempt, you have to pay the tax, you still have an obligation to pay the tax if that's the correct legal determination, but you can't be penalized with penalty and interest in the interim from relying on written advice from the tax officer. Those are the two circumstances that the law allows it. Now, there is on occasion municipalities that will adopt, usually by resolution, a threshold where a tax officer can negotiate or settle a certain amount of tax due. And that's usually at a cap that the board would give them authority to do, to say if you're reducing the assessment by less than $1,000, you have that discretion, but as a settlement. Because the issue you run into if you give a tax officer pure discretion to waive penalty and interest is the uniformity issue, where all taxpayers have to be taxed equally. And if you are abating penalty and interest to some taxpayers and not others based on a judgment call, then you risk violating that uniformity clause.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilman Lawson?
Thank you, President Hill. And just on that last question there, I've noticed, where I've known like maybe the state has done something or the federal government where they say they're going to give like a holiday for the penalties in an effort to try to gather that tax revenue. Is that something that could be done? Like basically it's just across the board, or would it have to be you have no discretion and we leave it there?
My advice would be, yes, it can be done, but it needs to be done uniformly. Mm-hmm. And that would be a conversation we would have to have with counsel and your solicitor to make sure that any of those policies are uniform. We saw a lot around the time of COVID. And if you're going to treat every single business the same, that's allowed. Where you start to push that line is sometimes when you say, if you're a business who has never paid the tax, and you willingly come to us and say, hey, I'm 5 years delinquent, I'd like to get current. There's some places that adopt a policy that say, if you come forward, as opposed to us having to go to you with enforcement, we'll waive certain penalty and interest. Again, the only way that that's even could be discussed in my mind, and my advice to you would be, is if that's uniform for every single business that comes to you that way. But where there's still a risk that we would need to have a conversation to look at where that level of liability is what if another business who is currently in compliance and then gets charged penalty and interest for a late payment, if they challenge and say, well, you're not uniform because you waived this person for 5 years of penalty and interest for non-payment, but you didn't waive mine and I was only late for 1 year. So that's where that analysis would have to come in. But those are usually the methods that municipalities and even the state uses to within a uniform system, abate certain penalty and interest in certain circumstances.
Okay, thank you for that. And then I just had a quasi-question, quasi-statement, because the process that Mr. Hughes described seemed very easy. And I know it's easy to say that here as we're sitting here, and when you get into the process, it may not be quite as easy. But I think right now there's a perception that it's more difficult than maybe it really is. And I'm just wondering how we may look at ways to change that perception. again, we want people to invest in the city. We want to make sure that they believe it's going to be a fair, seamless process that they can go through it. And maybe we start them with, your office and say, okay, go in this direction and try to prevent people from going through that, the process of buying the daycare before they find out that it's out of compliance with zoning. I know you can't stop all of it, but I'm just wondering if there's a way for us to kind of get that message out there a little better so that the business owners or future business owners know that there is a process that should be fairly streamlined.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could work with our communications department a little more closely and see if we can, put some additional information out there. I mean, we do have information on our website, and in the past, I have attended different business development meetings, and we've met in the community in different locations, when there was different people in the business development role, and I would speak about this. So we were always trying to educate people. You have to get them to attend the meetings, read the information. I mean, we're open for suggestions, but I think, as you stated, it seems like we're always having people that they just open up, and then we have to deal with it after the fact, and it doesn't usually turn out happy for that person. So, but we're always trying to make adjustments, improve processes. So we'll surely take that under consideration. So,
thank you very much. That's everything.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I move to add Resolution 22 of 2026 to our next legislative session agenda for a formal vote. Thank you very much for your presence.
thank you.
This concludes the business of the Administration Committee. Next, we have the business of the Community and Economic Development Committee. I will defer to our Community and Economic Development Committee Chair, Councilman Lawson, to lead discussion.
Thank you, President Hill. We have one resolution for consideration today, Resolution 2026, a resolution approving the preliminary final land development plan for 1171 South Cameron Street, presented by my eyes, Chris Catonia. All right. You're not him, but he's on the Zoom, but he can hear me mispronounce his name. Okay, that's but of Storage 5 Harrisburg LLC to convert an existing office building into a self-storage facility and construct additional storage unit buildings on site and associated site and access improvements. And it looks like we have Mr. Knight here here for the administration to discuss this.
Yep.
Thank you. Please.
Yes, good afternoon, council members. So as Councilman Lawson noted, this is a preliminary and final land development plan for 1171 South Cameron Street. The applicant is proposing to convert the existing office building into a self-storage facility and to construct additional storage unit buildings on site. If council members are familiar with the property, it is the former, I think, Olcam Corporation building, which is just across Cameron Street from the County Mental Health building down there at the intersection of Cameron Street and Sycamore Street. And the property itself, based on our research, has been vacant for about 6 years. So sometime in 2020, the property vacated, so the building's been sitting there vacant since that time. And the applicant's proposal, represents a pretty sensible reconfiguration of that space into both interior storage units within the existing building, as well as new storage units being constructed around the base of the building on the east side of the building, so on the back side of the building, as well as some new structures in the parking lot that occupies the southern half of that property. Overall, the project is going to result in a bit more of a simplified traffic circulation pattern for the property itself. They're going to be putting in a little bit of bump outs to better control traffic. Right now, it's just kind of a big asphalt lot surrounding the building, so it's a little bit confusing as to where you can go. And this is going to create a much more simplified traffic pattern around the buildings on site and to and from the property as well. And overall, again, it represents a pretty sensible reconstruction of that property. So with that being said, the Planning Commission is recommending that City Council approve the request with the following conditions. Because the property is located in the AE 100-year floodplain, any proposed development is subject to conformance with the regulations in Chapter 7-315 of the zoning code, specifically with respect to investment in the existing structure and the construction of new storage buildings on site. And to provide a little bit more information on that, about the western, I'd say, third or quarter of the property is located in the 100-year floodplain. So the investment in the building itself will be subject to those regulations. And from my initial review, I don't think there's really anything to be done there. But the construction of the new units in the southern half of the property will need to be developed in conformance with the floodplain regulations, which primarily require the structures themselves to be elevated 1.5 feet above the base flood elevation at this location. And then the second condition is that the applicant should construct a separate stairway on the north side of the center driveway connecting to the proposed curb bump out in front of the main entrance to provide dedicated pedestrian access and ensure safer circulation for all potential customers. And again, that is if you go out from the main entrance, which is along the south side of the building, out to Cameron Street, there is a one of three driveway access points at the location, but there's no real pedestrian access onto the site. You just kind of have to walk through the driveways. So the condition requires that steps be provided there so that there's a dedicated separate pedestrian access. And that will connect right to one of those curb bump outs that I was describing earlier. So it should definitely make pedestrian access safer than the current conditions allow. With the Planning Commission recommends the City Council approve the request for the following reasons. The adaptive reuse of a large commercial building as a self-storage facility will ensure rehabilitation and occupancy of a long vacant structure. Proposed site improvements such as access gates, one-way traffic flow, lighting, and new sidewalks and pedestrian infrastructure will improve visibility and enhance the safety of customer circulation to and through the property. And finally, the location of the proposed storage facility on a major mixed-use corridor near adjacent municipalities, Steelton and Swatara Township, and the new Interstate 83 access ramps, and proximate to a dense apartment complex to the east, establish conditions that should ensure the viability of the proposed use. With that, I'll hand it over to the applicant.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Good evening, Council. My name's Stephen Taylor. I work for the engineering firm representing Storage 5, the developer here. I didn't really have much to add to Jeffrey's summary. It was quite thorough, so I guess I will turn it back to you all for any questions.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I did have one question, and Mr. Knight, you may be able to help me out because I don't remember the exact designations for the flood zones. You said AE is where the main building would be. What does that typically affect?
So the AE is FEMA's designation for the 100-year floodplain. And for existing structures, it limits investment in that structure to less than 50% of the fair market value of the structure. There are several ways of calculating that, but and off the top of my head, I'm not exactly sure what that is for this structure, but I think it's somewhere in like the maybe $3 million, $4 million range. So the amount of investment necessary in that building is not going to trigger that threshold, and they should be good there. And then for new construction, they require it to be elevated to what's called freeboard, which is 1.5 feet above what the base flood elevation is to give a little bit of buffer area. And that's, again, to prevent the incursion of water into a structure like these storage units or a home or whatever in the event of a 100-year flood.
Right. The only reason I had the concern just because of the property being a storage unit and people putting their stuff there and probably forgetting about it until there's a heavy rain event. And just wanted to make sure that, and now I guess you're the engineer, so making sure that there are steps taken to make sure that their items are protected. That's the only real thought that came across as I was looking at this. Overall, I like what you put together in the plan and what you're looking to do, but I did have that concern about the flooding. So that's all that I have for questions myself. I will start to my immediate left here and ask Ms. Green if she has any questions for you.
Thank you very much. I don't have any questions regarding this.
Vice President Jones?
Yes, thank you, Councilman Lawson. How you doing today, sir? Is someone on Zoom? And his name is?
There's two people. My name's Chris
Okay.
Catania. I'm the owner. And then John Clark, he's the architect.
All right, nice to meet you, Chris. So my question.
Nice to meet you.
My question probably would be in regards to you. I see that this project is generating at least, going to be about 6.7 million in construction and about 10 million in total. I see that you said that it will be from 50 to 100 construction jobs and about 2 permanent jobs. But then when it gets to, with the respect to MBE, WBE, DBE, you said there will be no participation there. For me, I am very big on making sure that local businesses are included in the economic growth of the city of Harrisburg. So my ask would be, with those, in between those 50 to 100 jobs, construction jobs, how much of that are you looking to spend locally? I mean, in the city of Harrisburg, because we do have very talented plumbers, electricians, drywall hangers, all of those different things. So my question to you is, why no MBE, WBE, DBE, and how much of that spend of those 50 to 100 construction jobs are you looking to do locally? One of the things we see here, there's a lot of economic development. One of the things I'm very interested in is economic empowerment. And any project that comes to our city, I believe that some of the people here should have an opportunity, a fair opportunity to at least apply for some of these positions to have a chance to grow economically. So that's my question for you.
Yeah, and Steve, if you could clarify the question in the response that we gave, what the acronym, I'm not familiar. Tell me what we said we were not going to
The MBE
solicit.
is Minority Business Enterprise.
Yeah.
WBE, the Women's, and the DBE. So these are all like, I want to say like minorities.
Yes, I'm familiar.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't know why. And Steve from CEC would have to answer this. Was there a question that asked if we would do this, and we said no? Because we solicit for local subcontractors in all of our projects, and we essentially only hire local because it makes the most sense for the project. It gives jobs to the community. The money stays locally. There's cost advantages for local contractors. So the answer is actually yes, we will look for contractors in those categories.
Yeah, well, I'm reading here. Maybe I'm reading this wrong. I'm going to read it back to you. Whereas in regard to economic development, the applicant has stated that the construction value of the project is $6,700,000. The total value of the project is $10 million. The number of construction jobs is 50 to 100, and the number of new permanent jobs is 2. With the respect of MBE, WBE, DBE participation, the applicant has stated no.
So that may have been a misunderstanding on our part, assuming that those were like engineering.
Excuse me, can you please speak into the
sorry.
microphone?
Sorry
Thank
about
you.
that. Yeah, so that may have been a misunderstanding of asking whether these type of companies would be involved with the design, architecture, or engineering design of it. We weren't thinking about the actual construction, which, as Chris stated, yeah, he likes to use all local resources. So
That's good to know.
to be honest, I wasn't aware of WB or MBE construction companies. I'm really only
Well,
familiar
there
with
are.
the engineering world. I've seen that in the engineering world. You know, a lot of municipal and city projects require a certain participation from those companies. So I thought that was the engineering / architecture / design aspect of the project.
So the second part of that question, so now we got that part cleared up. Out of the 50 to 100 construction jobs, how much of that 6.7 spend do you plan to, if you can give me a rough estimate, it doesn't have to be an exact number, are you looking to spend here locally within the city limits of Harrisburg?
Chris, I think that might be a better question for you.
Yeah, so it's going to be, I'm estimating, I don't have our general contractor on the call, but it's over 50%. The largest item where we would send money kind of outside the community would be on the storage units themselves, because they're proprietary to a company that's a national company, but they do bring in local labor, so it would have to be broken out, you know, material versus labor. But then everything else, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, all the big trades, those will be local to the community. Now, is it going to be Harrisburg versus a surrounding neighbor, you know, a adjacent city or township? It's up to the general contractor and the bid process and who comes back with the most qualified and cost, you know, effective bid.
All right, yeah, I understand that, and again, so when I say local, and I get it, I'm not saying to spend all of your money here. I get it. You have to.
Yeah.
There's competitive prices and different experiences that these companies have. I'm definitely full aware of that. But again, hopefully, you guys, this is just something that I'm huge on. Again, is making sure. Some locals, and again, when I say local, I'm using not York, Lancaster, I'm saying in the city limits of Harrisburg. We do have plenty of qualified individuals here. And there is a list that maybe the city can actually share with you with some of those construction companies. But again, it's up to you to utilize them. It's just something that I'm asking. And I have no other questions.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Vice President Jones. And there is a list of qualified local contractors that's being compiled with our diversity officer here within the city of Harrisburg. So if you talk to your general contractor, you may want to have them just make a call into the city just to get some names, and maybe there's an opportunity for a spend with someone here locally. And President,
I will do that.
Sorry about that. Please, I didn't mean to cut you off. All right, President Hill.
Thank you. I just had a few, follow-up questions related to the Planning Commission report, just to learn a little bit more about your business. So it was asked during the Planning Commission meeting whether the developer had other storage facilities operating in the region. I just wanted to clarify. It notes that the applicant stated they did not, to his knowledge, but that they were evaluating several other locations for such facilities in the area. Can you confirm that you are Texas-based, and are you evaluating other locations in the greater Harrisburg area or other locations along the East Coast?
Yeah, so we are Texas-based. We operate through an ownership management structure. So this particular site, just to give you a little background, I will be the owner under a company called Storage 5. This one's Storage 5 Harrisburg. And then Extra Space Storage, which is a publicly traded national company, will be the manager of it. So the people who actually run the store, the district managers, they're all from that local area, and they have other stores already in Harrisburg. So us as an ownership group, or me as an owner, we have a existing property in King of Prussia, near PA, if you're familiar. we just purchased and closed on the building at 1000 Nationwide Drive. We will be doing the same thing there, converting that to a self-storage facility. We actually got a zoning variance for that. We have one under construction, a ground-up project in Sicane, PA, and I'm actually on the road right now calling you from a hotel room because I'm visiting a project that we're finishing in Milltown, New Jersey. So we have properties in Rhode Island, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, kind of expanding as quickly as we can. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. And there will be 2 employees on site?
Yeah, the self-storage stores typically operate with 2 full-time employees on site, for coverage hours.
Okay. I don't think I had, in reference to the Planning Bureau's conditions for approval, the 2 that were outlined and previously discussed, are you agreeable to those conditions?
I believe it was the stairs, and Steve, we talked about that, yes, and you have to remind me what the other one is.
Hold on, I'm going back to it. I went back to it was the floodplain issue, but 1 second. Okay, the first one relates to the floodplain. I think we talked about it, but I just wanted to confirm that you are agreeable to this condition.
The floodplain, it will be in compliance, and I just want to also mention that the existing building is built outside the floodplain, and that we have an elevation certificate that shows base flood elevation and finished floors already 1.5 foot difference.
Okay, thank you. And then the second one was correct, the separate stairway. So you said
Yes.
that you're agreeable. Okay. I don't think
Yes,
I
ma'am.
have any other questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, President Hill. Councilwoman Ross.
Thank you, Councilman Lawson, and good evening to you both, and to Mr. Katana. Is it
Catania.
Catania? Thank you.
No one says it right, so don't. It's okay.
Okay, well, thank you, but I'm gonna try my best. I
Okay.
just had 2 questions. My first question was just, why did you decide to come to Harrisburg and want to build a storage unit, Storage 5 development on Cameron Street, excuse me?
A couple reasons. I'm a businessman, so there's a opportunity in the market. There was a building that was underutilized that came available. Most of our facilities are conversions of existing facilities or existing structures into self-storage facilities. We do ground up, but a majority are conversions. So there was a market opportunity. The second reason is it's a capital city, so you're kind of guaranteed its existence and hopefully continued growth. Visiting the area, there's a lot of infrastructure projects going on right around this site. So I think that shows progress, and I think everybody kind of alluded to that earlier about wanting to get more development around that area. I personally like to visit Harrisburg and Hershey. My wife has family there. I have a young daughter, and we like to come and visit. And I like to visit places I do projects in. So, obviously the business aspect is the driving force there, but it's also a place I like to visit.
Well, thank you. That was a pretty good answer, especially since you like to come visit and pour your money into our city. So
Yeah.
I can't object to that part. My last question was, I just was wondering what the address was to the Storage 5. Is it called Storage 5? That will be what it's called. I know it's Storage 5 Development LLC. I did find that online, but is that what all your storage units are called?
No, so everyone is a single asset entity. So Storage 5 Harrisburg LLC is the entity that owns this facility. The one at Nationwide Boulevard, that is under a name Storage 5 Capital City PA LLC. And then again, across the country, they're going to be similar, Storage 5 something. Usually it's the name of the city or township or street it's on. But again, this one will be managed by Extra Space Storage. So it's going to be branded Extra Space Storage, which is the green storage facility. And it has a specific store number if you'd like that. It won't be on the sign, but it'll be part of its, like when it does its business filings for employee tax and stuff, it'll be on it.
Okay, no, I didn't want the number. I was trying to see what it looked like in King of Prussia to see what it might look like here. But
The King of Prussia one.
I think
that
it's called
one
Extra Space.
Yeah, that one's
Storage, like you
branded
said.
as a public storage.
Okay.
And I can give you the address of it. It's probably the easiest way.
Yeah, I just wanted to see what it could possibly look like because the pictures were black and white. I don't really know what that's going to look
Yeah,
like.
the
It's more of
King
a
of Prussia one's a
diagram.
good one. It's 125 Borough, Boro, Line Road, in King of Prussia.
Thank you.
And there is an extra space facility on Lincolnstown Road.
Ah, that's the same company.
That's the managing the storage facilities owned by companies like
Okay,
this.
the same. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but I would caution you to, if you're looking at other extra spaces, I couldn't really hear that. Some extra spaces are corporate owned, which are typically, and then some are managed like mine. So
Okay.
the quality varies. Our quality is built to Class A. So what I just gave you, the address in King of Prussia, is a pretty good representation of what a finished product would look like.
Well, that's good to know because we only want Class A here. Nothing else in
That's
the
the goal.
alphabet. Thank you. So that's it for me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Ross. Councilman Rodriguez.
Thank you, Chair Lawson. No questions from me. I did have a question geared around WBE and BE participation, but you've alluded that you weren't familiar with the program at the time. I just want to say, as you're going city to city, state to state, you might definitely want to do just a little bit more due diligence of, the different areas. We're not all a monolith. There are differences and variances depending on where you go, more rural, more urban. To your point, Mr. Catania, you are right. This is the capital. But, as a city high in the 70 percentile of just WBE, MBE participation, looking to participate, it's something we champion, although we know we don't have control over how independent dollars are spent as opposed to development, but it is something that is near and dear to this council's heart. So, any support you could give to local businesses in the area, it would definitely be an advantage to, just the revitalization of the local area and our economy. And like I said, it's no pressure on you, but it is something we definitely, champion and look forward to with that kind of participation. So thank you for joining via virtual, and thank you, gentlemen, for being here. That's all.
Understood. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Rodriguez and Councilwoman Dan.
Thank you,
Davis.
Councilman Lawson, and thank you, Mr. Knight, Mr. Catania, Mr. Clark, and I think there might be one other person. Thank you for being here this evening. My sentiments, as my colleagues mentioned, we appreciate any consideration for the women-owned, minority, and diverse business, any work that you can give our local community. I have a question here. I don't remember why I wrote this question down, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And this question is for Mr. Knight. What would be required in terms of refuse collection for a project of this magnitude and a recycling dumpster, or can recycling be put in a dumpster in this on this site?
So that's something that would best be answered by the Department of Public Works. And actually, this project was the first one that we've looped in the Department of Public Works on preliminary reviews. Usually it's like police, fire, city engineer. But, we had been putting recommendations in of coordinate with the Department of Public Works, and I just figured out, why don't we just do that as a part of the review process? So I do believe they've reviewed this. I don't know off the top of my head whether they responded or not, but the applicant will need to coordinate with them on refuse disposal going forward. And as a self-storage facility, I wouldn't imagine it's generating a lot of trash on a daily basis. You don't have like a lot of people there. Maybe people are throwing stuff out from their units, but I'd imagine a dumpster would be necessary for the use.
Okay, thank you. That was my thought at first, that this would be a question for Public Works, but I just thought I'd ask anyway. Otherwise, my questions have been answered. And thank you again for being here this evening.
Okay, Councilman Jones.
Yeah, I got one last question. So say some of these storage units, once they up and running and someone leaves them behind, do we have storage wars in Harrisburg? No, what do you do, honestly? What do you do with those storages?
The answer is you could come to Harrisburg. Yes, they auction off units. That's handled at the management level, so the extra space storage would do that. I don't believe that any of our facilities have ever been featured on Storage Wars. It's a question I get asked all the time. I would caution that it's not as glamorous. Most of the time when people abandon a unit, it's a bed frame that we got to get rid of, not treasure. So, but it could happen.
That was just a question. I mean, it was funny, but it was a serious question, honestly.
No, I get it. I get it. But it does get brought up a lot.
Storage auctions in Pennsylvania are governed by a state statute.
Okay.
What notice you get, how the house has to happen, the timeframes. So
Okay.
it's pretty black and white.
And the last thing, hopefully, that you can send over again, just, I don't know, it's what's in a resolution already with the no to the MBE, WBE, DBE. But we did have you say that you're looking to at least spend 50% of that spend here in the city, correct?
Yeah.
All right, thank
Yes.
you. He said, yeah. You sure?
Yeah. As much as we can spend there locally, that's the goal.
I appreciate it.
Okay, so.
I just
Mr.
have one last thing.
I'm sorry.
Just a point of reference, it's question number 5 on the application. So just in case you see it
Okay.
again, it's on the application. It was question number 5.
Yeah, and I'm sorry that I didn't clearly hear it earlier, and we're very familiar with small business, women-owned business, minority-owned businesses, and we do lots of work with them across the country. There's no reason that we would exclude them. That's crazy to even think about. We encourage that, and I personally encourage it. So
Yeah.
we'll be looking for businesses like that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a long acronym, so that,
It is,
that can,
and
it can be
I apologize.
confusing. But no, thank you for explaining that more. That's it for me.
And it looks like.
Councilwoman Davis, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Councilman Lawson. One more question. Where would the local or the jobs be listed? Would they be listed on, is it pen bid, or how would you advertise those positions, jobs for the local community?
Specifically for the construction side?
Or any of them?
I know the construction side, yeah, there's various portals that the general contractor is going to put the plan set into, and then they'll be able to get solicitations from whoever signed up to those specific portals or websites, which they're pretty common, like Plan Bid and stuff like that. And then when it comes to the actual employment of the once the facility's open, I know Extra Space, they will about 1 to 2 months before, they'll solicit for job openings in the community because these people live and work there. How they do that, I believe it's through various online work, related sites. And then they'll bring them into the program if they're new to storage, and they'll train them at another facility, get them ready to come to ours. I would think like, your typical job search websites. I'm not familiar with that as much as I am the construction side.
Thank you. I know pen bid is one that, are you familiar, Mr. Knight or Solicitor, of other portals?
So they're really two different things. The construction one, they may or may not use a site like Penn Bid, but the State Department of Labor has sites. Various entities have sites for jobs. And so it really will be, I think Extra Space is a sophisticated player in management and ownership, and they will probably have it down to how they advertise for jobs in a community.
Okay, thank you very much.
I will note I'm a tenant, and the same guy has worked there ever since we first rented a spot, the exact same man. So,
Thank you.
That's great. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, so Mr. Catania?
Catania. Yeah.
All right. So thank you very much for zooming in here with us. And we said that we wouldn't put any pressure on you, but our diversity officer heard that you didn't know of WBE, so she came to our meeting today. We'll make sure that she can get contact information to your company, so this way, when you guys are talking to the general contractor, he can reach out to her to say, hey, what companies can we hire as subs to work on this project?
That'd be fantastic.
All right. So, based on his willingness to work with us and the fact that you're taking care of the flood issues, I'd love to recommend Resolution 2026 to make it to our legislative agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have the Parks, Recreation, and Enrichment Committee. I will defer to our Parks, Recreation, and Enrichment Committee Chair, Councilwoman Rawls, to lead discussion.
Thank you, President Hill. Mr. Truesdale, can you please read Resolution 21 of 2026 in?
Resolution 21, 2026, a resolution authorizing the submission of a grant application to the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources Community Conservation Partnership Grant Program in conjunction with the Capital Area Greenbelt Association for up to $100,000 for funds to acquire real property in order to relocate a portion of the Capital Area Greenbelt in South Harrisburg.
Thank you, Mr. Truesdale. Who is here from the administration to speak further on this resolution?
Good evening. My name is Debbie Rehart. I work as a project manager for the Department of Facilities and Special Projects.
Thank you. Good evening, Ms. Reinhardt. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, thank you. Yep, so as soon as Mr. Truesdale is done, you can go ahead and take it away. Do you want to introduce yourself too? I know who you are, but.
Yes, hi, I'm Doug Hill, and I am president of the Capital Area Greenbelt Association. I'm a city resident downtown, 709 Green Street.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Go ahead, Ms. Reinhardt.
So I'm going to step up. I appreciate you bringing the resolution up for consideration tonight, and certainly we appreciate all the work the city's been doing with the Capital Area Greenbelt Association to try to restore the link in South Harrisburg that we lost because of the development of the Veterans Outreach, Eden Village, and Tunnel to Towers. You have the application in front of you, the resolution. There's also a 4-page summary of where we stand relative to doing the connection. As you can see, it's a little bit of a complicated project. We've divided it into 2 phases. And so the application that you have for a grant under consideration this evening is for property acquisition for phase 2. And with your permission, I'll just do a very brief overview to give you a little bit better context of what you have under consideration. So the Greenbelt, historically, on this chart, this is the Susquehanna, Cameron Street across the top, and the traditional trail of the Greenbelt went down through here and out this way. This is all the portion that we lost to the development for the housing for the veterans and critical needs first responders. And so since that time, we have been detouring from Front Street along Sycamore Street to Cameron, back over and in at Chenoy, and then reconnecting with the trail here. We've been working to develop a reconnection that is safer and more suitable for the type of users that we have, and we've divided it into 2 phases. The reason is phase 1 is just a little bit easier. Phase 1 comes from Front Street to the driveway at Pensy Supply, and that is all city property. Essentially, we're widening the sidewalk along Sycamore Street, along with an access and a crosswalk down at Front Street. Phase 1, we have grant funding in place, $750,000 in LSA funds from DCD, as well as $150,000 from DCNR, and we have some funds available as well from a prior Dauphin County gaming grant. Phase 2 is to make the final reconnection, and that is a little bit more complex. And what we will be doing is what we are working on doing, because nothing's finalized yet, is to do a ramp off of the Pensy driveway down parallel to Sycamore Street, underneath Sycamore Street Bridge, and then through a lot here and reconnecting to city property. And so that's the very brief overview. To give you a little bit better perspective, this larger view is the entirety of the Pensy property. And so they're all currently still in active operation. This is Interstate 83, Paxton Street, Sycamore Street over here. And what we're talking about is some land acquisition in this immediate area. And so what we handed you tonight, so that you have a graphic and don't have to figure it all out from our 4-page description, shows you the land acquisition that we're talking about. So phase 1 comes to up here to right about here at the driveway, and then phase 2 begins there, and the design we have, again, loops around underneath, comes through this lot and reconnects, and this is city land from here on down. The trail's not developed there yet, but that is city property right now. It's already dedicated for recreational use. So the grant application is to acquire the land that we need from Pensy Supply to do this, and it's in 2 different parts. The first part on the north side of Sycamore Street is about 0.4 acre right-of-way acquisition, so we wouldn't be subdividing, we would just be acquiring a right-of-way. And then acquiring altogether by fee simple a currently subdivided property on the south side of Sycamore Street, owned by Pensy Supply. We are in negotiations with Pensy on the acquisition. We've completed 1 appraisal. They've asked us to complete a second appraisal for comparison purposes. We expect that appraisal to be completed by the end of April, and then we'll go into final negotiations on purchase price. As you'll see, we have letters of support from the president of Pensy Supply for the project, obviously not committing to sell the land to us, but rather commitment to continue these negotiations. And if we reach an agreement on a price, then transfer will be made. It was more convenient to do a right-of-way on the north side because subdivision is tricky in this location, and particularly because Pensy ultimately may be selling the entirety of their property as they readjust their operations. And so the right-of-way seems to make the most sense. As I noted, this lot is already subdivided. It's about 1.3 acres and is rather easily developed. It's all flat. And while you see the design here with the zigzag, this was done if we thought we needed to stay close to the boundary line. We don't. And so instead, we'll probably do a little more meandering through and still connect right over here. So the application is for $100,000 for DCNR, and it's on the C2P2 program, the Community Conservation Preservation Partnership Program. It is a 50-50 match, so we're obligated to raise the other $100,000 to match against that. And you see how we break that down in our narrative. I will note, since we submitted this, our estimated costs have gone up a little bit for 2 reasons. Number one, Pensy asked for the second appraisal, and so that's going to be about $16,000 altogether. And then second, when we go to do the survey, because we abut the railroad, there are some special requirements to when you're doing a survey and you're touching railroad property, and that may increase the cost of the survey. So we're now estimating total cost is going to be about $216,000. The first appraisal we got for the property shows the lot value is $150,000 or $125,000, and the value of the right-of-way is $50,000. Again, we don't have any preliminary numbers for the second appraisal, but we'll be seeing how that compares. So I think that's the briefest overview. On the piece I put in front of you, you can see where the property line runs. It's something of a faint line, but at least you can look at it a little bit more closely and get a better perspective of where it is. The lot would be conveyed to the city. The right-of-way would be conveyed to the city, and so would become part of the city's recreational properties. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. I didn't have a question as of now. I just wanted to clarify, and can tell me if I'm wrong, because you had already mentioned it's a one-to-one match.
Right.
And that CAGA is going to be responsible for raising the $100,000. And I just wanted to note that I believe, I know my council members saw it, but anybody online who didn't see the resolution, that part of the way you're going to raise the money is to apply for a gaming grant for $75,000.
And that application's already pending.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make a note of that.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I'll note as well that part of this includes some of the survey work and all the legal costs that are involved, and we're in discussion with the city whether that can be absorbed through the city offices.
To absorb the legal costs.
Right.
Okay, thank you. I'll start to my far right with Councilman Lawson.
Thank you. I don't have any. I don't have any questions right now, but thank you for that presentation. Thank you for the work you're putting together here, keeping the cyclers and the walkers safe. That was my main concern when you're detoured through Cameron Street, and so hats off to you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Green.
Thank you very much. I don't have any questions regarding this. It's pretty simple. Why wouldn't we want to authorize the submission of a grant application, right? Thank you for the work that you do and for continuing to push this forward. Oftentimes things get changed and they kind of just get left behind or pushed to the side. So thank you for continuing to push this forward.
Vice President Jones.
Thank you. No questions.
President Hill.
Thank you. Good evening. I don't have any questions.
Thank you.
Councilman Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Always a pleasure to see you. Thank you both for joining us this evening. No questions for me. I knew this was coming in some way or fashion when Tunnels for Towers project was announcing, and if you remember, my big thing was I didn't want CAGA left with this big bill trying to figure things out. So I'm glad there's some light at the end of the tunnel when you're making great progress. So just looking forward to it, and as Councilman Lawson said, you know, that Vision Zero, making sure the cyclists, making sure, you know, the walkers are safe, high priority. So kudos and hats off to you. And if you need any help, please let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Councilwoman Davis.
Thank you, Councilwoman Rawls, and good evening, Ms. Reinhardt and President Hill. Thank you for your work, and I don't have any questions. Have a good evening.
Could you just clarify the timeline again? I was typing it and then you went a little bit too fast and my hands did.
Okay, for this grant, the deadline for submission is April 30th, and so you are well ahead of schedule. Understanding the potential, if you act favorably tonight, that it can be on the agenda next week for final approval. I will note we are working with the city staff right now in preparation of submittal of another grant to DCED. This is a more generalized grant, would be for about $250,000 for design work for Phase 2. And you'll note in the narrative, we already have a grant application pending that the city sponsored with PennDOT for, I believe that's $895,000, and that's for the construction for Phase 2.
Okay, thank you. I should have clarified. I meant timeline for the project. I'm sorry.
Okay. Timeline for the project, Phase 1, we are in the process of signing the engineering contract, getting the final design work done. The only issue we have with Phase 1 is that because it involves moving the Jersey barrier that's there on the Sycamore Street overpass over the railroad, we have special approvals required from Amtrak, and that can take 6 to 12 months. And so optimistically, if we get that moving, get those approvals, we'll begin construction on Phase 1 in the spring. Phase 2 will be entirely dependent on whether we get the PennDOT grant for the construction work for Phase 2. And then from there, we'll be able to develop a better calendar.
Thank you very much. I don't have any other questions, and I recommend that Resolution 21 of 2026 be on the next legislative agenda. And that is it for the Parks, Recreation, and Enrichment Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. We will move forward with our meeting agenda. Next, we have public comment. Just a few housekeeping notes before we begin. If you're interested in offering any public comments, please state your name and your address for the meeting record. If you don't feel comfortable sharing your address, please share the vicinity in which you live within the city. You will have 4 minutes to share your comments. Mr. Truesdale has added a timer for the screen for your reference. I'll begin to my right. Is there anyone that would like to offer public comment?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Brian Muhammad, 2346 Luce Street. I'm calling about speed bumps. So we need some on Luce Street. There's a lot of children on Luce Street. A lot of activity on Luce Street. I talked to Public Works. They said they were going to send engineers out there to put some stuff down to track the traffic, plenty of traffic, trap houses, stash houses, all that stuff there. And the motorcycle guys with the small motorcycle, they're there. That's Luce Street. And Dairy Street, that's a hot mess. Always a lot of accidents on Dairy Street. And North 20th Street needs speed bumps. That is the thoroughfares to uptown now, especially since Market Street's all messed up. They fly up there on 20th Street. That's between Market and Whitehall. Okay, that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the middle section that would like to offer public comment? Seeing and hearing no one. Anyone to my left? Okay, seeing and hearing no one. The time is 7:01 p.m. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
So moved.
Thank you. We stand adjourned.